Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to talk about Ethereum and the fact that February is carrying the Ethereum or January torch. If you guys like the content, please subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. Also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Let's go ahead and jump in. So here we are, continuing on up our Ethereum mountain range. And we have officially broken through $1,500. Now you could argue that a $1,500 Ethereum is somewhat akin to a $20,000 Bitcoin. And it's exciting to think that Ethereum could continue to go into this manic price discovery mode. And this is something we want to follow every step of the way. So we're going to be doing a lot, we're going to look at several different areas of analysis in this video to just get a feel of where things could go based on historical moves, okay? I will take one moment to say that we had a sale for the premium list last month, and a lot of people have watched those videos, and they've been asking me about it. So we're gonna reopen it back up. So if you want to check out the premium list subscription, check out the description below, and we'll run the sale for a couple more weeks so you guys can get in if you want to. Otherwise, let's continue back here. So this is our regression band, and again, this regression band was instrumental in helping us identify our reaccumulation phase. Not only did we have the reaccumulation phase of a lifetime video here, we even had the reaccumulation phase of a lifetime video here, where we said, okay, Ethereum's giving us yet another chance to hop on board the train before it leaves the station. Well, it's left the station. Okay, the station was left long ago. The question is, where is our next stop? And to some degree, we can already look at our prior tops and realize that, we've already exceeded them. We're well above 1440. We're into the $1,500 range now. So this is pretty exciting. Let's look at levels of extension above the fair value. So one of the things we can do, again, is we can simply look at, say, the extension here from the fair value at the peak corresponded to almost 4,000%. I do not think we'll ever be 4,000% extended from the fair value again because of the law of diminishing returns as we've seen with Bitcoin. Right now, we're only a modest 353% extended from it. From the fair value band here, we were extended about 775%. From this one, we were extended about 400% or so. And so on and so forth. From this peak, about a modest 2,000%, and then earlier in 2019, we were extended maybe about 170% or so. So we've seen a lot of different levels of overextension from quote-unquote not the fair value regression band, which is quote-unquote fit to non-bubble data. Now, the question is, well, how much higher can we go? Well, one of the things we can do is we can first try to get an idea of what would be too far. What would be too far in the short term for it to realistically be something that we could consider as happening. And to get an idea of that, we can overlay our regression rainbow. And the reason we're doing this is because by looking at this, we have an idea of where it cannot go. Okay, and it likely cannot go to the upper regression band ever again. If this frustrates you, the idea that we cannot go to that level, let's just talk about potentially why not. Well, again, the reason why not is because we would expect diminishing returns, and because we expect diminishing returns, we do not necessarily think that it will be able to get as extended as it has been in the past. So, with that in mind, if we look at our Bitcoin regression rainbow, again, we've discussed this before, every peak so far, it doesn't mean it won't break, and there's always a good chance it breaks, but so far we've gone down 2.5 log lines, peak to peak, right? And then 2.5 again, half, and then a full one, and then a full one, and then even if you want to consider this as the peak, which I don't, I think it's going to be a long cycle, but even if you did, it was 2.5 log lines. Note that if we don't go back up to it in the short term, this is still increasing, so we could always come back up to it later and still respect the 2.5 log line rule. Of course, there's a good chance we don't respect it, and Bitcoin says to hell with that rule. Now, the idea, though, behind this is that we likely will not make it to the top regression band, because in the past, for a Bitcoin, it always tends to fall down a few regression bands from various cycle peaks. Even if we're not in the current, say, cycle peak, maybe we're in some sub-cycle of a grander market cycle, you can see that these other peaks never quite made it to the prior peaks. Now, for Ethereum, we don't really have nearly as much data to go on. We simply do not have that much data to go on. But what we could imply is that the likelihood that we make it to this peak or this regression band is not very high. Now, that doesn't mean we can never make it to the lower bound current price of it, which is around $9,200. It just means that it's likely that by the time Ethereum one day gets to $9,200, it'll likely correspond to one of these other regression bands. As you can see, these regression bands are monotonically increasing functions, right? They are moving up. So you can see that the yellow band, let's say in July 2019, was only at 563 at the top, or 555 at the top. Now at the top, it's around 1500. So time is on our side. A lot of people ask me what crypto needs. It's simple. It's just time, and we just need time. Time is on your side. So with that in mind, I don't expect us to ever make it to this regression band again. Therefore, in the short term, a $9,000 Ethereum up to a $17,000 Ethereum is just simply somewhat absurd, to put it lightly. It's just somewhat absurd to think that we could get to that level, say, in the next few weeks. It's almost assuredly not happening. We're going to say it can happen. We're never going to say that. Anything's possible. But with that in mind, the chances of us making it to that level are pretty small. Now, the 2.5 log line rule for Bitcoin works because, well, we have a lot of data to look at. These regression lines are different. We don't exactly know how it's going to behave. And again, the width of these log lines is also different. Okay, so it's not even the same pattern. We can't necessarily project the same pattern. There still is a decent chance we also never make it to this regression band again, which currently spans from 5,000 up to around 9,000. So that doesn't mean Ethereum will never make it to $5,000. It just means that if we were to make it to $5,000, it just probably will take us a bit of time to get there. And by the time we get to $5,000, if we get there, it could correspond to still the purple band. Okay, so that's the point. The point is to say, the regression lines at the end of the day are somewhat meaningless, but they can at least help us interpret larger scale moves and the fact that we're probably not going to make it up to the higher regression bands. But what about the lower ones? Could we go up to the orange one? One of the things you can note is that every time so far that we've gotten around the yellow band, we've hesitated for a few weeks before continuing higher, just like we did here again. If we were to go to the top of the orange band, it would correspond to around $2,700 to $2,800 Ethereum. If we were to go to the top of the purple one, it would correspond to up to 2,800 up to around 5,000. This is, of course, if it were to go there this week. The other thing we want to look at, naturally, is extension from the 20-week moving average. The 20-week moving average, because historically speaking, the 20-week moving average for Bitcoin and somewhat for Ethereum is our support in a bull market. So even in the event of a crash, hopefully we would hold the bull market support band as support and not drop below it, which would then call into question the integrity of the bull market. Now, if we were to go to the natural log of the price over the 20-week moving average, again, we can see that more or less we would probably expect the extension from the 20-week to ultimately trend down. You might say, well, why is this? Well, again, if you go to Bitcoin and look at the same trend, extension of the Bitcoin price from the 20-week moving average tends to trend down with time. That's what it tends to do so far. So we probably would expect the same thing for Ethereum, that it likely will not reach at levels of overextension that we saw in, say, June of 2017 or March of 2016. But it doesn't mean we can't come back up to this level, somewhere in that ballpark. To give you an idea, if we were to come back up to this point over the next few weeks, it would correspond to well over a $2,000 Ethereum, or around a $2,000 Ethereum, maybe even higher, depending on how long it takes us to get there. So even to fill in this macro level trend line, we could still theoretically have a decent amount of gas left in the tank for Ethereum. If we were to look at, say, the overextension from here, and say we got back to that level at the current level valuation of the 20-week moving average, remembering that this indicator is the natural log of the price over the 20-week, then it would correspond to around a $2,100 Ethereum. If we were to reach the same level of overextension that we reached in May of 2017, At the current 20-week moving average, it would correspond closer to like a $2,700, $3,000 Ethereum. Depends on exactly how long it takes us to get there. So these are exciting times. I think everyone needs to remain somewhat pragmatic about the market. Let's not, again, don't schedule your Forbes interview just yet. One of the things I want to remind you about is that, at the end of the day, we've seen this happen before. We've seen Ethereum go into price discovery before. And while things have moved up fairly quickly over the last few months, it's possible that they think that things pick up a lot more from what you ever could have possibly imagined. So I only say that from my own experience. It does not mean we're going to experience that again. But I have seen it do things that you just simply cannot understand, right? Or you just simply cannot fathom. And so if that were to happen, right, if we were to start to go up and the valuation of Ethereum like doubles in a relatively short period of time, you must recognize that when it gets to that level, there's probably, we're getting into very risky territory. Very risky territory. So just something to keep in mind. We want to remain calm in these markets. I don't want people to necessarily, betting the family farm at new all-time highs and new peaks is usually not a good idea. So be responsible. Am I buying Ethereum at 1538? Hell no. I haven't bought it for several weeks, but I was accumulating it for years, and now I'm happy to just watch the position run. If you're new to the party and you're like, well, what about me? What do I do? You can always accumulate Ethereum, but you have to recognize the downside short-term risk. There is a chance it goes down in the short term, and because it's so far extended over the last year, it could be pretty nasty whenever it does go down. However, obviously with the momentum right now, no one's going to be surprised if it goes to, say, a $2,000 Ethereum, right? I don't think anyone's going to be surprised if that necessarily happens. So I would say just be responsible with what's going on. None of what we talk about here is financial advice. If we look at the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation, and before we get to that, I want to remind you that we do have the premium list. I recommend checking it out into thecryptoverse.com. If you want access to the sale, which will let it go on for a little while longer, we stopped it about a month ago. Gotten a lot of people interested. And hopefully they'll find it valuable. So we will let people come back in at the sale price. Check out the description below for that link, and we'll leave it up for about a couple weeks or so. So make sure you guys check it out. You get access to the weekly reports, the weekly videos, the premium Telegram alerts channel, the Telegram chat room, the risk dashboard, which is what I use to trade and how I manage my positions. And then also you'll get access to a lot of the TradingView indicators. So a lot of stuff. Make sure you guys check it out. The link to the sale is in the description below. So the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation looks pretty healthy. We've come right back up to where we were a week or two ago. Now, what I'm hoping to happen, in the same manner that we did not fully respect our trend line on the way down like we had been for quite a while, hopefully we see the reverse happen. And one of the things we've discussed is that if you look at these lines here, you can somewhat see some of the structure behind these lines, right? You have the bottom, and then you have this bottom here that corresponded to this one over here. Then you had this top region, which also corresponded to this one. Once we got above this level, it was somewhat clear skies. So are we saying it's going to be clear skies again? No. But if it is, are we going to be surprised? Hell no, right? Of course we're not. So let's be rational. It's not the house's money. It's not the house's money. It's your money. Don't squander it. Don't do anything that you're going to regret. So let's just navigate these markets as calmly as we can. Let's see what happens if we end up spiking above and doing something like this, and we watch Ethereum just go crazy at some point over the next month or two. If that happens, don't squander the opportunity. If you don't care about these moves and you just want to hold for 5 years, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. A lot of people do that, and I think it's a fine strategy if that's what your goals are. It's all about your risk reward. If you just want to hold for 5 or 10 years, you don't care about the price because you're like, you know what, I'd rather just blindly put money into the market and then just let it grow and then wake me up in 10 years and then I'll take a look. That's fine. What I try to do is I try to take advantage of these valuation shifts against Ethereum and Bitcoin. And one of the things we discussed back in December was the momentum shift of Ethereum against Bitcoin. We said We said for 3 or 4 months that we're likely going to see a momentum shift of Ethereum against Bitcoin in January. And then in January, that's exactly what we saw. Don't thank me, thank the data. I just merely interpreted the data. It had nothing to do with anything else, no fancy TA or anything. It's just what the data suggested, that it would go up in January. And the other thing that the data suggested is that as long as Bitcoin is above the 20-week moving average, that February could still be a good month for Ethereum. But let's fast forward in time and let's go to March. Let's fast forward to March. And if we're looking at this chart in March or later this month, and we're looking at a much higher valued Ethereum, if the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation is somewhere up in this level, remember, it's a give and take. Ethereum will have momentum shifts against Bitcoin, but it also can go back the other way occasionally, and there's nothing wrong with that. And actually, Ethereum also can sometimes have decent summers. So maybe you have a good Q1 for Ethereum. We've seen many years where Q1 is good for Ethereum, and then it might calm down in Q2. So if in Q2 we see Ethereum calming back down against Bitcoin, is it anything to be concerned about? No, it's not. It's business as usual. It's just the seasons changing. Okay? It's the seasons changing. So let's keep an eye on where Ethereum goes. We'll keep an eye on exactly where we are. Right now, we're putting in new all-time highs as we speak. We're currently at over 1545, 1546, climbing higher. Would it be that surprising to see a $1,600 Ethereum in the short term? No, it would not. Another thing that we should look at is, well, we know that Bitcoin basically doubled once it got to its prior all-time high of 20K, and it went to 42K. Is it possible that Ethereum goes to 3K? It is. Of course it's possible, right? We're not going to say that nothing is impossible. A $3,000 Ethereum would basically just be repeating what Bitcoin did, going about 2 times above its prior all-time high. And one could argue that Ethereum, the reason we hold Ethereum is because we expect more volatility. So, it's certainly possible that it outperforms Bitcoin from its prior all-time high. We'll have to wait and see. We clearly don't want to jump anything yet, but remember, Ethereum also came from a lower value as well, right? It dumped harder, so it's already up 15, 16x from the bottom, right? So to some degree, it already has outperformed Bitcoin from the bottom. The question is it going to outperform it on both sides, where it does a better ROI from the bottom, and then as you measure it from peak to peak, will it also do a better ROI? Personally, I think it will. I think that as you measure it, as we look back on this market cycle in a number of years, when we look at the final peak of Ethereum, this market cycle, I think if you measure it from the peak of the last cycle at 1400, I think Ethereum will ultimately put in a higher ROI than Bitcoin. And that's based on our analysis of Ethereum being, in terms of its annual volatility, being one market cycle behind Bitcoin. Also based off its running 1-year ROI. Also based on extension from the fair value logarithmic regression band. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that Ethereum volatility is one market cycle behind Bitcoin. Therefore, do not underestimate what Ethereum can do. We spent years talking about Ethereum and accumulating Ethereum. It's time to reap the rewards. So we're going to watch it every step of the way. Subscribe, give the video a thumbs up. Remember to check out the premium list. You can find a link to the sale in the description below. These are really crazy times right now, so if you're looking for some guidance, you can check out the premium list intothecryptoverse.com. But if you want the sale link, check that out in the description below. Hopefully this video has been informative. Thank you guys for tuning in. Let's go for 105,000 subscribers. Turn on your alerts, and I'll see you next time. Bye.